Good evening and welcome to another Democrats for Israel Los Angeles cooking event featuring the fabulous chef Doug Weinstein. And we want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. Tonight's theme for pre-Passover is God Haraset, and it's a fabulous concept. And I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Paperman, who put this together and is the maven of our food events. Debbie, take it away.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I want to say thank you for coming, and I really want to say thank you, Doug, for helping us out. And we're so excited to see your fabulous cooking. I've already seen it from the beginning. It looks amazing. Doug Weinstein is a chef that has been around for a lot of time. He's been involved in some of his highlights where, he's made scones and shortbread for Margaret Thatcher. He made Hugh Hefner's wedding cake at the mansion. He's made Jell-O for Ronald Reagan. Currently, he is the chef at the Santa Barbara Federation. He's been an assistant pastry chef at the Beverly Wilshire. He's just amazing. This is our second event that he's done for us. The first event was in Hanukkah for latkes, and we're so excited to have some haroset from around the world. And after you can ask him about some Passover questions you have. So take it away, Doug. We really appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much. It's great to be here. Passover is a great time of year for food, especially around where I am. The people around me cook a lot of great food, and haroset's one of those things that me and the kids gorge ourselves on every year. And this year, Rabbi Cohen at Congregation B'nai B'rith in Santa Barbara did a whole sermon on haroset. And so I won't read the whole thing, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background about haroset. And we're going to do a couple of ancient recipes so that you can see how haroset has changed from the original to how most of us eat it now. At least in the Western Hemisphere. In the Eastern Hemisphere, they eat it similar to the way they always have. We've made ours a little fresher and a little sweeter. But I'm going to go ahead and read just a couple of paragraphs from Rabbi Cohen's sermon, which was distributed if you registered for the event. So I'd like to begin with an old Passover recipe written down over 800 years ago by the 12th century Rabbi Moses Maimonides. How is haroset made? Well, we take dates or figs, and I have both of those in here right now. So you can see right there, those are dates, figs, raisins, and apricots. So we take dates or dried figs or raisins or anything similar and mash them and add vinegar and mix them with spices as clay is mixed with straw. So Maimonides put the recipe in writing about 800 years ago. I imagine it has been passed down in Jewish kitchens from one generation to another for hundreds of years before that. Another famous haroset recipe is from Rabbi Ovadia of Bertinoro, born in North Italy in 1445. In his commentary on the Mishnah, the rabbi writes, "We make the haroset from figs and hazelnuts and peanuts and almonds and other kinds of fruits, and we add apples and pound it all into a mortar and mix it with vinegar. And we add kinds of spices, strips of cinnamon like long, thin stems, which are reminders of the straw. The haroset must be thick as a reminder of the clay." So and it goes on. It's a real interesting sermon, real interesting read about haroset. And so I printed up, and you should have them, 3 different recipes. We've got Rambam's haroset recipe, which is very similar to Maimonides, which is what I'm making here. And actually, which I'm going to make also. And then I have a Sephardic style, which is what I've got going here with the cooked fruits. And then I've got the traditional Ashkenazi, what most of us eat, which is fresh apples, cinnamon, honey, wine, and apples. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead, and if you could pin the table instead of my face, because I'm going to be looking down, I'm going to go ahead and make some haroset. So I've been stewing this fruit over here for a little while, and it needs to simmer just a couple more minutes. So I'm going to make Rambam style, which calls for the dried fruit. So I've got figs and I've got some apricots. Now I've soaked these dried figs and apricots overnight, and it calls to chop them finely, right? So you want to watch your fingers. I'm not going to cut myself this time. I already got the sympathy ploy in the last presentation that I did. So we just want to chop these up nice and fine. And this one, now they call for vinegar, and I imagine they used vinegar because they didn't want to waste fresh wine on something that was going to be sweet already. And so vinegar back then was really stale wine. So I have my stale wine, which is otherwise known as Manischewitz. And so we're going to use that. That was a joke. Manischewitz is perfectly good wine for this. So we chop this up nice and fine. And you could pulse this in a Cuisinart if you wanted to. One of the things I like to do when I'm making ancient recipes is to try and make it the same way that it was made in the old days. So that way I have an experience of what it was like back then. Let me grab a bowl here. So we take and chop these up. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to grab the recipe so I don't mess it up too bad. So we've got the chopped dates, and I've got dates or figs and apricots in this one. We're going to add some wine. Now the water has already been added because the fruit was soaked in it. And this one calls for za'atar leaves, and za'atar is an Eastern herb mix with some sesame seeds. And we put that all together, and we're supposed to mash that into a paste. So I'm going to go ahead, since I don't have a masher like Maimonides or Rambam did, I'm going to go ahead and stick it in my handy dandy Cuisinart over here. And it says to just pulse into a paste. And it should be thick. Now this one, you'll notice, doesn't have any nuts, which was interesting to me, that this, one of the original recipes, didn't have nuts. And that may have been because at the time, nuts were a delicacy. It may have been expensive. It may have not been available to Jews that may have been either in exile or being enslaved by Egyptians or whoever. So this here is Rambam's original 800-year-old recipe of haroset. And you can see, let me move my camera down. You can see that it is a nice thick paste, like mortar, but it also has some chunks in it. And I can't wait to taste it because I've never had haroset with za'atar. So we'll eat that in a few minutes. So there's that one. The second one is the Sephardic style, where I've taken the dried fruits, as the recipe calls for. I brought wine to a light simmer on medium heat, and then I stirred in the fruit and the spices, which is cinnamon and ground cloves, and I cooked it until the wine reduced into a thick syrup. So it's been about 15 minutes. I don't like adding salt to food because it's not necessary. In a food processor, we'll roughly chop it in short pulses, and then we're going to add, I've got walnuts, as you can see over here. I've got walnuts and pecans, and we're going to leave some of those in chunks, and we're going to mix it all together. Okay, I need another bowl. So let's go ahead and take this mixture, and we'll put it in the food processor. So this is not a complicated item to make. And this one here, the recipe says you can serve it warm. Let me move this over here. You can serve it warm, or you can serve it at room temperature. We're going to pulse that a little bit. And here again, you can see that it's a nice thick paste, and we are going to add nuts. Now, almonds are a very common nut in the Middle East. And so that's why, if you look at recipes, you can kind of tell where they're from based on the types of ingredients that they put in them. So as you can see here, this is also a nice thick paste, but it still has some chunks in it. Right? And then we're going to take the chopped, I have pecans here. You can do apples. I'm sorry, you can do almonds if you prefer, if you want. You can do hazelnuts, as the Italian guy in the story did. And we just mix it up. Now there's already wine and the fruit. And so this one doesn't call for honey either. It does call for orange blossom water, but I have a nice Meyer lemon. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze some Meyer lemon juice in here. And as I always say when I'm doing my cooking shows, recipes are a guide. They're not a rule. So if you don't have orange blossom water, but you have rose water, you could do that. If you had a nice sweet Meyer lemon, you could exchange it, or you could put some orange juice in it. Okay, you toss it up neatly, and there you have it. Okay, now just in case you're wondering what it tastes like, in a minute, I'm going to take my matzah and I'm going to eat some in front of you. So I'll let you know how it tastes. Okay, so now, and if you have any questions or comments, has anybody had either one of these two types of haroset? Anybody? No?
I haven't myself.
Okay, so this is probably the kind you've had. We're going to take the apples. We're going to chop up the apples. Now, I kind of like a medium-sized chop. That's what I was raised on, so that's what I'm used to. Some people like them a little finer because it's easier to put on matzah. So it's entirely up to you how thick or how chunky you want your haroset. Again, I'm not going to cut myself this time. Once we have the apples, that was 3 medium-sized Gala apples. You can use Gala, you can use McIntosh, you can use Granny Smith. I would not use Red Delicious. They're a little mushy. You want something that's got a little more body, something that's a little tangier, which these are. So to this then, I will add my walnuts, but first I want to chop them just a little bit. And I'm very specifically measuring these, as you can tell. So I'm going to go ahead and chop these. Now, some people like to whirl them in the Cuisinart and make them super fine. I don't like them that fine. I like it a little chunkier. It feels more decadent to me when it's chunkier. However, it is supposed to be like mortar. So if we were going to follow the biblical description of haroset, we would put it all in the Cuisinart and blend it up really well. So to this, I'll add a little more lemon juice and some honey. And last but not least, the Manischewitz. And with that, you mix it all up. We'll probably add more honey. And then we have to add some cinnamon, because those are the spices of the region. Some cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg. Nutmeg is always about a quarter of the volume as you would put in cinnamon, because otherwise it's overpowering. And we mix it up. And it's best if it sits for a little while. Right. So now I'm going to clean up just a little bit and we'll present this. Right, and there, my friends, is haroset from around the world. We'll take a bite.
Yum, it looks
So there
great.
you have it. And you can see that they're different colors, they're slightly different textures, but they all look pretty delicious. So now with this, we would take our matzah and break up the matzah and put it on a nice dish. And if you wanted to you could display the matzah pre-broken on a dish. And you could spoon out a little bit of each onto the matzah, and you could serve it this way. You could allow people to scoop their own. It all depends on what kind of party you have. But we'll go ahead and do it this way for now. There you go. And there is matzah. You can even take a little za'atar and do a little garnish on there. And there you have it. Matzah or haroset from around the world.
Looks delicious.
Isn't that cool?
Wonderful.
All right. Now, is the rabbi here going to talk?
Yeah.
See, what time do we have? How much more time do I have?
I think for now, we're going to get our board member Sunny is going to introduce the rabbi, and then we'll come back to you afterwards and for more deliciousness from you.
All right, and I'll be working. So if you want to watch this camera, I will be making some matzah bark while you guys are talking.
Yum.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. I apologize. I'm having computer issues right now. And I'm just really delighted to have my good friend, amazing, the multi-talented Rabbi Michal Loving joining us. And I can't say enough about her, but I'm just going to try to do her bio justice. Michal grew up in Long Beach, California, and Holon, Israel, and was lucky enough to serve congregations as a senior rabbi. I think the congregations were the lucky ones. This is in Coral Springs, Florida. She was a rabbi educator in Sacramento as well, and as a student rabbi in Marion, Indiana, Richmond, Indiana, and Mattoon, Illinois. Currently, she resides in Southern California and serves the Los Angeles, Long Beach, Orange County communities, and she officiating a life cycle events and teaching classes to youth and adults in local synagogues. She's also faculty for the Union for Reform Judaism's online Introduction to Judaism program. And she meets, learns, and grows with students from all over the United States and Canada. She's a recipient of numerous education awards. On her writings on spirituality, inclusion, and Jewish parenting have appeared in various publications, including the Jewish Community Chronicle, the book, The Sacred Encounter, Jewish Perspectives on Sexuality, the science blog, Sinai and Synopsis, and the CCAR, Central Conference of American Rabbis Journal. And she holds a Bachelor of Arts in English and Philosophy from Whittier College in Massachusetts, in philosophy from California State University, Long Beach, and a master's in Hebrew letters and rabbinical ordination from the Reformed Jewish Seminary, Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion. Her husband and her 3 young sons keep her busy, and if she's not reading, writing, or watching a Star Trek episode, you're gonna find her baking a cake, playing Minecraft, or tripping over Lego pieces. So help me welcome my dear friend, Rabbi Michal Loving, who has been wonderful to accept the invitation and support us tonight. Welcome, Michal. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so very much, Sunny. That was an absolutely lovely introduction. Truly, I appreciate it. And I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I have to say, I have gotten used to Zoom learning in this COVID world, but Chef Doug, I am so sorry this is not in person because I really want to taste all of that charoset. That looks amazing. So thank you so much for having me here. So I wanted to speak a bit about this Seder plate and how does the Seder plate intersect with our Jewish values and social justice and Israel? Because I think that sometimes we can think that the Seder plate is just this sort of old ritual. It's just one of those ritual objects. They're it's beautiful. We have it in our cabinet. We bring it out every Pesach. And here we have our charoset. If you can see, I'll show you my Seder plate that I'm working off of here. So let's talk a little bit. And please welcome you. I do not want to be talking for the next 15 minutes, but what I want to talk about what is on a Seder plate, and then what are some things that we can add. So we have charoset, and pardon me, Chef Doug, if you've spoken about this already. What does charoset symbolize?
The mortar.
Yeah, absolutely. The mortar or the bricks. There we go. Go ahead, Greg.
I was listening.
Oh, you were listening. Thank you. Thank you. And what about our maror, our spicy horseradish?
Tears.
Tears. Yeah, when we're crying. Absolutely. Karpas, our greens.
Light.
Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. What about beitza, egg?
The lifestyle.
Life,
Life, like that.
birth, life, renewal.
Yeah, life, birth, renewal. Absolutely. Bobby, were you going to say something too?
No, that I always have a vegan Seder, and so I listen to this, but I mean it. I use seeds, sunflower seeds.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And for a vegan Seder, instead of zeroa, the shank bone, you can also use beets, I will say. Why would you put beets, or why would you put a shank bone?
Because that's how the angel of death knew to pass over the homes.
Yeah.
blood. That seems kind of gross to a vegan. So I use a yam, and I've noticed in the Haggadah I wrote, it says God's outstretched arm, like a number of times.
Yeah.
It refers to God's outstretched arm. I have to say, just listening to the differences and such, it really makes me understand. I mean, I had many years not being a vegan, and then I really understood it when, I did something with it.
I'm so glad.
Explanation. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. You're most welcome. And then just one last one, chazeret, a different greens. No? Oh, yes, Jessica. Did I see your hand? Oh, never mind. You were just stretching. A chazeret is sort of the same. Chazeret and karpas, the parsley, and the egg are all really about new life and growth. So this is our traditional Seder plate, right? It's fantastic to have the Seder plate. It is what we speak of, what we know are coming out from our exodus from Egypt for 2,000 years, right? But I want to suggest some other things that you may not have heard of. We'll start off with, maybe you know this one, an orange. Have you ever seen an orange on a Seder plate? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Now that was a hand, Jessica. I saw that.
An orange belongs on a Seder plate like a woman belongs on the bima.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. A woman belongs on the bima. And you know what? Professor Susanna Heschel, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel's daughter, actually said that this came from in the 1980s when there was so much discussion of gay and lesbians in synagogue. And she said that this actually came from the thought of there's much room for a lesbian in Judaism as there is for a crust of bread on the Seder plate. So a small movement wanted to put bread on the Seder plate, and they thought, you know what, that's way too sacrilegious. So instead, that's why we have an orange on the Seder plate for LGBTQ rights. And then you spit out orange seeds, which are sort of there to represent homophobia. So what about an olive? I put an olive on my Seder plate. Has anyone ever heard of an olive? An olive,
but I've never heard of an olive on a Seder plate.
An olive is a new thing, according to the Shalom Center for Israel. Why the olive? Because for millennia, the olive branch has been the symbol of peace, and we seek to make peace when there has been war. The reason I love the symbol of the olive is because that doesn't say how we're going to get that peace, right? There is no political pressure to get that peace through one specific policy or another. But we are for Israel, and we are for the well-being of Israel. And when we put an olive, it brings a discussion of, okay, what does it mean to extend that branch? How are we going to make that happen? And how can we as advocates bring about peace for Israel? Here's another one. And I love this one just because I love sweets. Fair trade chocolate. Put a little piece of chocolate on your Seder plate. What does fair trade represent in general when I say that phrase?
Working conditions are decent, not young children.
Absolutely. Economic partnerships that are based on equality, right? Labor issues, sustainable environmental practices. When we put something fair trade, and I say chocolate, it specifically, it's so when you create a product, it reminds us that no, we need to be advocates for all of those who can't fight for themselves. Reminds me of why some will also put a tomato on the Seder plate. Who has not been getting vaccinated in record numbers in California? And who have been working?
Farm workers.
Yeah, and they have been in our fields, absolutely. So truah.org, Truah, right? Rabbinic organization, or a Jewish organization promoting rights, right? Says that it brings the tomato brings to our attention the oppression and liberation of farm workers who harvest fruits and vegetables. And it helps remind us of our power to create justice in this world. Same thing for an acorn. when I was just watching I have a fourth grader, and he is learning about Native Californians, and he was learning about the Tongva people and how important the acorn was to their way of life. And he said the Tongva have been fighting for liberation just like we have been at Pesach. And I said, that's brilliant. My fourth grader can't be the only one to have made this connection, right? And it turns out, no, that Piedmont, California, Kehila Community Synagogue started putting an acorn on the Seder plate to weave together discussions of indigenous land. And how do we take ownership of this land, and how do we acknowledge where it's from, right? Now, remember, all of these are supposed, you don't just want to put it on the Seder plate, just like you never just want to put the egg on the Seder plate. You want it to be a talk, right? It's the same thing when we have the shank bone. Doesn't mean anything, but Bobby, when you talk about the outstretched arm of God, that has meaning to us, right? So whatever additions, it's meant to spark discussion and thought and to bring our story of the Exodus even closer to us. In 2015, Elan Kurdi, he was 3 years old, and his brother Galip were found washed up on the Turkish shore. They were refugees from Syria. Does anyone remember that in the news? And his father, Abdullah, survived this journey and shared a story about his son, that this was one of the biggest flights, right? Since World War II, one of the biggest refugee crises. And what he had most wanted to do was to bring his son bananas because they were sweetness. And in war-torn Syria, that's what he could get that would give him hope. So some synagogues have been putting a banana on their Seder plate to think of refugees, that this is a way. And how can we act? What can we do? Are we going to donate money? How are we going to vote? What are ways that we are going to take part? Right? Whether we protest, whatever we do, even if we just have these discussions, how can putting that banana on the Seder plate honor this family, this little boy and his brother and his mother who had died, in their hope for a better life? Just as we are, coming out from our narrow place, from our Mitzrayim, always hoping for better. What time is it? I want to make sure we give enough time. Oh my gosh, it's 6:57. So one last one. Which is, you may have this already. This is a much more traditional one, but I always want to mention it. Miriam's cup. Does anyone have a Miriam's cup as aside from an Elijah's cup? Bobby, you want to tell us about Miriam's cup?
Well, I always think of Miriam and the water. We have water in like a beautiful glass because, Miriam saved Moses's life. Correct. Yeah.
She did.
She did it. Yeah. And then there's a song about Miriam, and somehow it seems to take a lot of prominence in the women's seders.
It does, because Miriam is the one who brought the water to the Jewish people, right? It said that the well followed Miriam. The very first prayer for healing, El na Rafa na la, is what Moses said, please God heal her, when Miriam was afflicted with leprosy. The reason why we have all the words of the Mishaberach prayer comes from Miriam, who's known for healing, who is known for water, the wellspring of life. And so I would encourage all of us to keep it. It doesn't need to be just in the women's seders. It needs to be in all seders, right? These are rights of gender and equality for all of us. How can we make our world better through all of these additions to the Seder plate, right? So the issues of 2,000 years ago of coming out and of our Exodus is ongoing, just in different ways. So this Pesach, I would encourage us to pick one addition or two or something that has meaning for you and bring these discussions into the Seder. As we have our choroset and as everyone is eating their Hallel sandwiches, right? What is an issue that you feel passionate about that you want to bring to the forefront? So it will truly be Exodus for everyone.
That was wonderful.
Thank you, Michal. You all can see why she's so brilliant and multi-talented, and I'm absolutely in love with Rabbi Loving, and I can't wait for you all and our delegation to get to know her more and just learn from her great wisdom and the beauty she brings in this world. Thank you so much for your time, Rabbi Loving. And please stick around if you want to join us. It's a lovely evening and love to have you more.
Thank you. I'll definitely stick around for a few moments. Thank you so much for the invitation. I've truly loved being with you all.
Oh.
So grateful for you, for your
Yeah.
words of wisdom. I love
I
it.
really like the way you brought it up to such current conditions. I mean, like today, like even on the news, there was a lot about the immigration and the children coming. And, you know, it reminded me of our history, the Jewish immigration.
Thank you.
But anyway, you brought so much, you know, right up to today. I thought that was really beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. That is what Pesach is, right? It's not just history. We are retelling it. So how do we retell it for today?
Love it. Well, we're going to go back to Doug. We really appreciate, Rabbi, you know, your words were just amazing. And I really hope you come back often to give us more words of wisdom, because I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone else, and we're going to be posting this everywhere. So we appreciate you. So we're going to go back to Doug with Chef Doug, and he's made some matzah bark. And then, you know, so he's been telling us about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
matzah bark that's suitable for non-diabetics. So we have a Napoleon matzah bark that's got melted chocolate, and I melted the chocolate in the microwave and spread it on there. I made a paper cone, a piping cone, and you could use a spoon. I made the lines, and then I dragged the knife through it to make the design, and I put some Heath Bar Crunch candy on top of that because it wasn't enough to have two kinds of chocolate. And then this one here is caramel, chocolate, and toasted walnuts. So that one's really tasty too. And then what I've got here in the oven, Manischewitz has some really good marshmallows. They've got marshmallows. Where's the bag here? They've got these toasted coconut marshmallows. I don't know how to show it to you here. They're really tasty. Toasted coconut marshmallow. I've been eating them. And then they also have these chocolate covered marshmallows, chocolate dip marshmallows, which I cut up and I put them on here, and I put them in the oven for about 6 or 7 minutes at 350, and it melted on there. And my 13-year-old is standing right there eyeballing those matzahs. So we're going to get those to him here in a minute. And then this one here is butterscotch, chocolate chips, and candied ginger. And I'm sure the rabbi can come up with some symbolism for all of that. But for me, that's a symbolism of sweetness and joy and life. And that's why I was a pastry chef, because people love dessert. So there you have it. You know, there are no rules. You can make them any way you like. You know, whatever your favorite sweet things are, put them on the matzah, put it on the table. And so here we go. Haroset and matzah bark.
Delicious. I really wish this was in person.
Oh, I second that.
Well, I'm in Santa Barbara, so if you want to come on up, I'm happy to share it with you. If my son doesn't eat it all, I'm happy to share it with you.
Next year, road trip.
Hey, Doug, I've got a question from the earlier part of the show, and that is, how would one go about finding the sitar leaves? Where does one purchase them?
So any Middle Eastern market will have them. You may be able to find them in Gelson's, or Whole Foods or Bristol Farms may have it. But there's got to be, in LA, there's got to be a section where you can get Zatar pretty easily.
I'm sure in Pico Robertson, there probably would be, I think.
Yep.
Bobby?
Yes, who's that?
Yes.
Bobby.
I'm in a smaller community in Northern California, And in Trader Joe's the other day, there was za'atar, there was za'atar seasoning, just like near the salt and the pepper and all that. And I did open it to see how fresh it smelled, and it smelled really fresh. Almost like being in Israel.
Nice.
It's real popular.
Yeah, the Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's, everybody, I think, has one near.
Well, thanks for that tip. You
Yeah.
can probably get it on Amazon too. I'm sure you can get anything on Amazon.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'll turn it over to Debbie and Greg, and they can tell you about the next one and what they're up to next.
We also wanted to see if anyone had any questions Passover related. We wanted to, just like there's the butterball turkey line for during Passover. We want to see if anyone had any questions for Doug, for Passover tips, or if you had any Passover tips for the crowd.
Invite people that cook better than you to bring something. That's my tip, right? And have everybody bring their favorite dish, and have them bring it in a dish they're going to take home with them, so you don't have to clean anything up when you're all done. That's my tip for the day.
Do you have any good tips for matzo balls to make them fluffy?
Yeah. So the most important thing is that you have a lot of water. Oh, and I'm doing a matzo ball Get Baked with Chef Doug in a couple of weeks. So I'll make sure, Debbie, you get the link. You can always look up Get Baked with Chef Doug on the internet and get a link. You can sign up, and they'll send you invitations. But we're doing matzo balls. The best tip I can give you with matzo balls is don't over stir it when you add the wet ingredients to the matzah. And have a big pot of water, have the water super hot. If you salt it a little bit, it seems to get hotter. And then when you put the matzo balls in, you have to put a lid on that's tight. And I always take something really heavy, like I've got these really heavy pots. I'll take a cast iron pot and I'll put it upside down on top of the lid so it holds it down, kind of like a pressure cooker. And it's the pressure inside the pot. It's kind of counterintuitive, but the pressure inside the pot makes the matzo balls grow because it's forcing the heat and the moisture into the center of the ball. And then you just got to let them go. Let them go for 45 minutes. Don't peek. Don't look. Go do something else. Leave them alone, because as soon as you open up that lid, it lets the pressure out, and you end up with matzo sinkers instead of matzo balls. So that's my tip. And then watch my.
Doug, is there an Instapot? Is there an Instapot way to cook matzo balls on an Instapot?
On what?
In an Instapot, could you cook matzo balls on an Instapot?
Does it boil water and hold and can you tighten the lid?
Well, it's basically a pressure cooker. It's a modern form of a pressure cooker.
Well, the matzo balls have to be completely submerged, and they have to have enough room to grow.
Okay.
So they have to be underwater. So if you have, and I like big matzo balls, so I make them. They usually say about the size of a walnut. I like to make them a little bit bigger. Oil your hands when you're rolling the ball, and just make sure that the outside is nice and smooth, because that will hold the shape, and then it'll grow. So I just think a big soup pot, like a big soup pot like this, with a nice tight fitting lid, and then you put something heavy on top and you let it go. That's the best way to do it. If you can do that with an Instapot, go for it. It's not, yeah. I've never done it. I'm a very basic. People ask me, what's that little tool you use to take the green out of a strawberry? I say, it's a paring knife. And they say, oh, okay, what's that tool that you use to peel an apple? So, well, it's a paring knife. When I worked at Williams-Sonoma, I sold more paring knives. I didn't sell any of that stuff from that big wall of accessories, because if you buy a good paring knife, you don't need any of those things.
I bet that made them happy.
Well, I got in trouble one time.
Can you do a close-up of your plates
Are you asking Rabbi Loving or asking Chef Doug?
Chef Doug.
Yum. Oh, great. I need that.
Thank you. I think the best way to get the green things out of the strawberries is a straw.
Well, if that works for you, then you should do it. All right. Anything else?
Anyone else have
Rick,
any
are
other
we getting
questions?
copies of all these recipes?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, all the recipes. Well, I mean, I posted all the recipes on the Facebook page, except for the matzo bark, which I'm sure we
Yeah,
can
the
get.
matzo bark, there's really no recipe. It's just whatever
Stuff
you get
you
in the
like.
cabinet, whatever you want to melt on there, pour on there. I mean, if you want recipes, you can. I'm happy to share. Debbie can give you my email address, and feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share whatever recipes I have.
I mean, the recipes that that you did the roasted are on the Facebook page, and we'll be sending out an email sometime in the next few weeks of more recipes, and we always want to have more suggestions of things that we could have Chef Doug or Rabbi Loving do for again. We want to say thank you so much for taking the time to help us out, and
want to urge you guys to go to our YouTube page. We'll post the link to it on the website in the next couple of days, because we've got both Chef Doug leading us through making fabulous potato pancakes back in the Hanukkah time, and we'll post this as well. And then we want you to keep checking our website, where we're in the process of redoing it, because we'll be having a series of events, both food events and events with speakers, to look at Israeli politics, look at American Jewish politics, and of course, when it comes time for elections here in the United States, we'll be encouraging you to get involved in that as well. But thank you so much, Chef Doug. Thank you so much, Rabbi Loving. Thank you so much, Debbie, for all the effort you put into putting this together.
and Sunny
And
too. And
Sunny,
thank you,
thank
Sunny,
you.
and thank you, Nitsan, for creating the event, and for all that she's recording everything. So I know I'm not technologically savvy, so I would be lost without Nitsan. So thank you.
And thanks for all the thousands of people that joined online. It was really great to have you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Thank you all very much. Have a good evening and have a good holiday.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.